They're not vampires, though they're highly sensitive to blood. They're not krakens, but they lurk below the surface, waiting for the right moment to strike. And they're not just a prop for B-list Hollywood movies. They're sharks, and they're as real as you and I. Welcome to Fierce's Shark Marathon, a collection of some of the most gruesome stories involving the most feared fish on our planet. After hearing these stories, you might want to think twice before swimming in the ocean. Her initial cries for help were ignored and taken for nothing more than a childish prank meant to frighten other beachgoers. In this video, we'll tell the story of Sarah Whiley, a young woman who met her end in the shark-infested waters of Amity Point on North Stradbroke Island, Australia. There are many versions of this story out there. This one is based on recurring details that can be found in most, if not all of them. Make sure to let us know what you think really happened in the comments below. January 7, 2006. 21-year-old Sarah Whiley was visiting North Stradbroke Island with several of her friends from a church group. They were having a normal, fun day at the beach in the waters of Amity Point, where they were renting a holiday house. They were tourists on North Stradbroke Island, and with this came a serious fault. Unlike locals of the island, Sarah and her group didn't know just how dangerous those particular waves were, and they weren't aware that in those weather conditions, sharks were more likely to come closer to shore, dangerously looking for any source of nutrition. As the day was coming to an end, Sarah Whiley unwittingly rushed toward a fateful, bloody encounter. One that would spark a conversation about the safety of Australian waters. Also known as Straddy, or North Straddy, North Stradbroke Island is located in the Australian state of Queensland, just some 19 miles southeast of the center of Brisbane. It's the home of Amity, a rural town which is scarce in locals but abundant in tourists. The village is situated on the northwestern point of North Stradbroke Island, known as Amity Point. Directly adjacent to it lies Rainbow Channel, the entry to Moreton Bay. The channel is close to shore, but it's also tidal and deep. As the locals know, shark sightings aren't rare. But Sarah Whiley wasn't a local. She was a tourist who loved swimming, and she was good at it. She had been swimming before she could even walk. According to her family, being in water was Sarah's second nature. It was normal for her to push her limits as she moved swiftly through the waves. But as fate sometimes has it, her biggest pleasure would also bring her untimely end. January 7, 2006 was an extraordinarily overcast day. The sky was completely covered in clouds, and there wasn't much light. Even more, there had been a fairly big storm the previous night. That meant that the water was still murky and quite dirty. There was a lot of wash-off. Still, it wasn't enough to deter 21-year-old Sarah Whiley and her church friends from taking a swim. The group of friends got in the waters at Amity Point. The beach was unpatrolled, which may have contributed to the appeal of the place. The day was slowly coming to an end, but there was still time for a couple more minutes of frolicking in the waves. It was initially reported that Sarah Whiley was swimming in water not even up to her neck when disaster struck. However, according to witnesses, the girl swam out of the clear shallows and into the deeper water of Rainbow Channel. Being an experienced swimmer, Sarah was probably confident in her abilities, but as it turned out, she shouldn't have been worried about her prowess. Instead, she should have been worried about what hid beneath the waves. Soon she came upon marker buoys signifying the presence of drumlines. Drumlines are aquatic traps meant particularly for large sharks. Usually deployed near popular swimming beaches, they're used to lure and capture the predators in order to reduce the probability of shark attacks. Getting close to the drumlines meant Sarah Whiley was getting close to baits and aquatic detritus. By swimming there, the young woman put herself at risk, but she did so unknowingly. By the time she got there, it was probably too late to alter the gruesome course of the events. Sarah was making her way back, swimming toward the shore. She wasn't very far away from her friends when it all happened. Suddenly, she disappeared. When she emerged 5 or 6 seconds later, there was just one word she could utter. "Shark!" she screamed, terrified and hurt. Her friends and other beachgoers couldn't see anything at first, so naturally they thought the young woman was joking, trying to pull a prank on her friends, especially since there were a lot of dolphins in the water. Meanwhile, Sarah was being mauled by sharks. When she started screaming again, people finally realized the severity of the situation. Her friends rushed toward the young woman, and so did other beachgoers. Accounts of what exactly happened vary wildly. What we do know is that after realizing Sarah was actually in mortal danger, people rushed to help her. Among them was Josiah Tupou, who was at the beach with his pregnant wife and his 5 kids. When he heard the screams of terror, Josiah sprung into action. There was a chance the girl was only joking, yes, but what if she was drowning and yelled "shark" because she knew it would catch the attention of more people? Or what if there were truly sharks in the water attacking her? As he made his way in the water, Josiah could see Sarah bobbing up and down, struggling. His relative, Ungu Tupou, also rushed to help. When he went to grab Sarah's arm in order to pull her out, the man was terrified to see her arm simply wasn't there anymore. Rescuers finally managed to get Sarah out of the water. They used towels, trying to stem the blood flow. Sarah's injuries were extensive. It was plain to see her condition was critical. The girl was bleeding heavily. Her arms, her legs, and her torso had all suffered horrific injuries. When Queensland ambulance paramedics reached her, Sarah was barely alive. Her friends and other beachgoers were left in shock, hugging and crying long after paramedics had departed with Sarah. She was airlifted to Brisbane's Alexandra Hospital and was reportedly rushed into surgery. It wasn't enough to save her. 21-year-old Sarah Whiley died shortly after due to massive blood loss and shock. All beaches within more than a mile stretch, both east and west of the spot of the attack, were immediately closed. Although they weren't 100% sure, investigators made an educated guess and assumed multiple sharks were responsible for the attack. Police and fishermen set off to search the waters, trying to find the sharks, although they knew it was a virtually impossible task. The attack sparked a conversation about safety measures, mainly because that particular beach was protected by Queensland's Shark Safety Program and had been so since 1997. Then Acting Premier Anna Bligh ordered an investigation to assess whether the program was still effective. According to her, the attack proved the Shark Safety Program wasn't an impenetrable barrier between bathers and sharks. Initial reports said Sarah had been swimming with her dog, which was reportedly what had attracted the sharks in the first place. But these accounts soon proved to be false. In fact, there wasn't one specific reason for the attack. There were multiple ones. The gloomy weather and the murky water contributed to the events. And obviously so did the fact that Sarah had unwittingly swum too close to the baits. The hour was also a factor, with the attack reportedly happening sometime around 5:30 p.m. in the afternoon. And it all happened in January, when sharks are particularly active in the region. To most locals, the attack on Sarah Whiley could be seen as inevitable. Many of them were even surprised that something like that hadn't happened sooner. According to locals, there was a difference between them and mere visitors. Visitors didn't know the water. There should have been warning signs upon entering the beach. About 400 mourners attended Sarah Whiley's funeral. She was loved by her community and remembered as a fun-loving girl who lived life at full speed. According to her friends, Sarah had always been an exceptionally compassionate girl. Sadly, hers was the first shark-related death at a beach protected by Queensland's Shark Safety Program since the program's implementation in 1962. There are a few things that you can do to reduce the risk of being attacked by a shark in Australia. First, avoid swimming in areas where sharks are known to be present, such as near seal colonies or areas where there has been a recent shark attack. Second, stay in groups when swimming, as sharks are more likely to attack solitary individuals. Third, avoid swimming at dawn, dusk, or at night, as these are the times when sharks are most active. Finally, if you see a shark, try to get out of the water as quickly and calmly as possible. It's January 31st, 2011. 39-year-old Nicole Moore is enjoying her day at the beach. She's on vacation in Cancun with friends from her exercise group from back home in Orangeville, Ontario, and nothing is better than the tropical weather for these fitness-loving people. After an intense game of volleyball on the beach, Nicole's friends decide to head back to the hotel for some lunch, but she tells them to go ahead without her. She'd much rather take a little swim to refresh her spirit and wash the stubborn, soft sand off her skin. She doesn't know it yet, but this choice is going to change her life forever, put her beliefs to test, and terrify anyone who hears this story. Cancun is one of Mexico's most popular resort areas, and for good reason. Located on the Caribbean Sea, the city teems with life. Hotels, nightclubs, and malls coexist with colorful open-air markets and family restaurants, but nothing quite compares with the white, cool sand beaches. Nicole Moore had no reason to be tense as she entered the water that afternoon. If anything, she was happy about her vacation, her body buzzing with the memory of the recently ended volleyball match. Nicole didn't even swim that far from the shore. In fact, she was in waist-deep water, trying to scrub off some of the sand that got stuck to her body during the match. She had no idea her movements were stirring up something from underneath the waves. She also had no idea that 2 sharks had been spotted at a nearby resort and that employees on jet skis had managed to get only one of the creatures to steer away from the tourists. So when Nicole looked up from the water, she saw 2 people on jet skis. The woman naturally assumed they were other carefree beach enthusiasts. They were waving their arms and talking to her in Spanish from afar. She had no idea what they were saying and just assumed they were being friendly. Nicole smiled and waved back at the 2 people and then went back to enjoying her little swim. But then those 2 yelled again, and Nicole had the sinking feeling something was about to go terribly wrong. Then something cold and slimy bumped into her body, and the 39-year-old was gripped by true dread. For a split second, she dared hope it was just a little kid who was snorkeling and who she simply hadn't seen. Then realization. Horrible realization. The massive mouth opened and clamped down on her left thigh. The teeth were so sharp it was like they were tearing through butter. Nicole looked down and saw the water instantly turn red with her own blood. It was strange. She couldn't feel the pain, but the gruesome sight was enough to tell the woman she was in deep trouble. Adrenaline causes a profound physical response, due to which endorphins that act like natural painkillers are released. So it's quite natural that Nicole didn't feel the extent of her injuries, even though the barbed teeth tore through the flesh down to the bone and ripped out 2 of her quadriceps and 2 hamstrings. The shark's bite yanked away more than a foot of Nicole's skin and flesh. The woman was desperate to get out of the water. Her mind was filled with images of her young daughters Tia and Ella. They were only 6 and 7 years old, too young to experience the trauma of losing their mother. Nicole Moore chose to fight. Her left leg was rendered useless by the horrible bite. She couldn't move it at all, nor stand on it, so she had to make good use of her arms. The mother of 2 started using her arms to propel herself to shore, but the movements were imprecise and slowed down by her wounded leg's inertia. Nicole struggled to advance through the bloody waves. In the meantime, the fearsome shark was circling her, leaving no room for interpretation. It wanted a second taste. The beast lunged in an instant, clenching Nicole's left arm in its jaws. The needle-like teeth held tight. The shark had the woman's entire arm locked in its mouth. Nicole felt an incredible amount of pressure as the shark tried to pull her underwater. But seeing those teeth layered and serrated gave the woman another wave of strength. She chose to defy fear and maybe death and raised her right hand. She started hitting the creature erratically until she somehow managed to smash her open hand down on the shark's nose. That one punch saved her. Although it's widely agreed that the shark's most sensitive areas are its eyes and its gills, a well-placed hit on a shark's nose could potentially make the animal let go. And that's how this particular shark reacted. It let go of Nicole's badly wounded left arm and swam away. But the horror was far from being over for the woman. She now had to somehow get herself to the shore despite the huge amount of blood she'd lost and the dreadful injuries both her upper and lower limbs had suffered. Her left arm was hanging precariously, her left leg had a gaping hole in it, and was essentially incapable of motion. You didn't have to be an expert to realize the situation was dire, but Nicole was, in fact, a nurse, and she knew her wounds were serious enough to be considered potentially fatal. She felt fainter by the second, and there was a great risk of her losing consciousness and simply drowning after putting up the fight of her life. But as it happens, Nicole wasn't entirely alone. In the end, it was humankind's innate desire to help another person in need that helped her. One of the people that had previously tried to alert her about the approaching shark rushed to her aid before she could disappear beneath the still bloodied waves. The man grabbed Nicole's right arm, gunning the jet ski and towing the woman to the shore. A trail of crimson blood was left in the water. Being back on the shore came as a small relief to Nicole. She was feeling weaker and weaker. People gathered around her. She could hear panicked voices talking in Spanish and English, but nothing was more present than her own thoughts. As a nurse, she had to do what she knew best. She took medical inventory of herself and finally asked the surrounding crowd for help. She couldn't go just yet. She had a loving husband and 2 amazing children, and she wasn't the kind of person who gave up easily, although it was getting harder to breathe. As a medical professional, the woman understood that losing so much blood caused respiratory distress, and every time her heart beat, blood squirted into the air. By the time Nicole arrived at the hospital, she had lost 60% of her blood. Her vital organs were shutting down, and she had lost consciousness. She was rushed into an 8-hour operation in a desperate attempt to save her life. The medical team had to insert a central line directly into the woman's heart and pump unit after unit of blood to make sure it didn't stop working. When Nicole woke up in the hospital, her father Alberto and her husband Jay were there. Even more, someone had found the missing piece of her left leg and brought it to the hospital, where it was reattached. But her suffering was far from its end. 6 days after the attack, Nicole was flown from Mexico to Toronto. Her father and her husband had struggled to find a hospital bed back home in Canada, but they finally managed to find a team who wanted to see Nicole through her ordeal. The new doctors were astonished to find teeth marks on Nicole's bones. But what really got them was that the woman's previous operations had been done carelessly. There was decay in her flesh, seawater and sand mixed with the bandaging. Her thigh had been reattached incorrectly. It wasn't getting any blood, so it was rotting away little by little. Multiple tissue transplants were required in order to cover Nicole's bone in flesh again, and her arm ultimately had to be amputated. But the attack never broke Nicole's spirit. She decided to stay and fight for her life and children. She overcame every obstacle, every bout of pain. She chose not to hate the shark. After all, it was her who had been trespassing in its natural habitat. Although shark attacks are incredibly rare in Cancun, in fact, there had been only 40 shark attacks in the whole of Mexico in the past 450 years. 11 months after her accident, Nicole returned to Cancun and even swam in the same waters in which she had nearly met her end. She has since become a motivational speaker, a shark conservationist, and a Shark Week beloved guest. This is the story of Jaimy Daigle, a young girl who ventured too far into the shark-filled waters of the Gulf of Mexico and paid with her life. It's a tragic, heartbreaking story, but it's also a story about how multiple people came together and tried to save a life. It was June 25, 2005, and 14-year-old Jaimy Daigle was on vacation with her friends. The teenager had just recently graduated 8th grade with honors, and she had plans to attend St. Joseph's Academy in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Jaimy herself was a Louisiana resident. The girl lived in the city of Gonzales. Her family, meaning her parents, Ronnie and Wendy, and her older brother Nicholas, were back home, but Jaimy was visiting Florida. In fact, on that Saturday, June 25, 2005, Jaimy was enjoying the waves of a Florida Panhandle beach. The Florida Panhandle is the name of the northwestern part of the state. The region is about 200 miles long and 50 to 100 miles wide, and it boasts some of Florida's most amazing beaches. The region's home to everything from quaint fishing villages to popular beachside cities. The climate is favorable all year round, with plenty of activities to satisfy the more adventurous tourists, those who'd rather go scuba diving than simply sunbathe on the shore. Jaimy and her friends were on a beach bordering the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf is old, older than most our minds can easily comprehend. It's 300 million years old. Over its long existence, it certainly witnessed countless events, and on that warm June day in 2005, the Gulf was once again a silent witness to a tragedy. Before this vacation in Florida, 14-year-old Jaimy Marie Daigle had spent part of her summer vacation volunteering at her church's summer camp for young children. She was now spending some well-deserved time with her friends before her first year of high school started. But as fate had it, Jaimy was never going to be a freshman. The day started well. Jaimy and her friend 14-year-old Felicia Venable played on the beach and swam in the Gulf's waters. They were having a great time, enjoying themselves and their time at the beach. Then the two teenage girls started venturing further and further from shore, beyond the first sandbar. Then the two of them passed the second sandbar too. Suddenly, Jaimy and Felicia found themselves about 100 yards from shore, too far from the keen eyes of any lifeguard or worrying adult. It's unclear why the girls swam that far away from land. Maybe they were just having fun and wanted to test their limits, or maybe they didn't think about it at all. It proved to be a fatal mistake. As the two of them were happily swimming and splashing around, they saw a dark shadow below the surface coming their way. Before they could do anything at all, the shadow became something far more dangerous. It was a shark, and a hungry one at that. Its small beady eyes and its sensitive nose were focused on one thing and one thing only: finding prey. The girls, so far away from any possible shape or form of help, were an easy target. They had no time to act. The beast struck, closing its jaws around Jaimy Daigle's leg. The shark pulled the girl underwater. When it broke away, the animal took part of Jaimy's leg with it. The girl's flesh was torn from hip to knee, exposing her bone. It took only an instant for blood to pool around Jaimy, turning the water crimson. Terrified and almost hysterical, Felicia Venable, Jaimy's friend, started swimming erratically toward the shore. She had just witnessed her friend being dragged under the waves and mauled by a fierce animal. Her horrified screams filled the air, which in turn caught the attention of several other beachgoers. They all sprung into action, although not all of them were entirely sure what had really happened out there. 23-year-old Chris White, a state health inspector and volunteer firefighter who had just gotten his EMT license, didn't know there was a shark in the water. He just saw a screaming girl swimming frantically toward the shore and an empty boogie board with no rider. At first, he thought maybe the other girl had gone under or drowned. Nonetheless, he sprung into action. Another beachgoer, Robert Atkinson, who was watching on shore, saw a fin and a pool of blood in the water. His stomach dropped, despite the feeling that the whole scene looked like something out of a bad movie. But Atkinson knew it was real. There was no cheap horror movie being filmed on the beach that day. What he saw was a nightmare, a real one. Back in the water, there was another man who noticed something was wrong and took matters into his own hands. Tim Daigle, a 54-year-old surfer, had also been enjoying the waves that day when he heard a scream. The man looked around, and that's when he spotted Jaimy Daigle's friend Felicia swimming as fast as she could toward the shore. The young girl seemed desperate to get away from something. It took a moment for Daigle to reach the spot that terrified Felicia so much. When he got there, he suddenly understood the girl. Tim Daigle saw 14-year-old Jaimy face down in a crimson-colored bloody circle of water. It wasn't hard to figure all that blood was coming from the girl. And it didn't take too long for Daigle to notice he and the girl weren't the only beings out there. When he looked in the water, Daigle saw a shark. It was obvious the animal had attacked the girl, and by the looks of it, it wanted to try some more. The beast was about to come up and attack again. Daigle put the girl, who by then was already unconscious, on his surfboard. The hungry shark didn't waste the moment. It tried to bite Jaimy's hand off. But Daigle and the other people who wanted to help the girl weren't just about to let the animal win. The 54-year-old surfer started towing the girl Jaimy towards shore, the shark close behind. Meanwhile, 23-year-old Chris was swimming toward the pair, wanting to help. He passed Felicia Venable, Jaimy's friend, but the girl couldn't tell him anything about what happened out there. She was terrified, unable to speak properly. Shortly before Chris White reached Daigle and Jaimy, he could hear Daigle screaming and hollering. "There's a shark! There's a shark!" the older man screamed. White and another man with a raft reached Jaimy Daigle, who was still unconscious, and Tim Daigle. The waters were moving unnaturally around them. The shark was close by, waiting for a perfect moment to strike again. Chris White grabbed the girl off Daigle's board and pulled her into the raft. He tried not to think about the shark, which was swimming at his feet. But none of them could afford to be attacked. For a while, all the brave rescuers stopped swimming, their bodies going limp and standing vertical in the water. They only dared gently dangling their legs. They were trying to look less like food. It was Daigle who took charge of the situation. The surfer punched the shark in the nose, which deterred its attack for a little while, just enough to let them gather the courage to continue swimming toward the shore. It was hell. The shark wouldn't give up despite Daigle's best efforts to scare it off. 6 times the shark tried to attack, and all 6 times were met with the surfer's firm responses. When splashing the water to confuse the animal didn't work anymore, Daigle repeatedly punched it in the nose. And then they finally managed to get Jaimy Daigle to the shore, but it was too late for the 14-year-old girl. Paramedics were unable to revive her. The girl was dead. Authorities closed a 20-mile stretch of shore, but reopened it the following day, on Sunday, June 26, 2005. Despite this, residents living in a building next to the beach spotted a shark about 6 feet long, right at the shoreline on that morning. A makeshift memorial was created on the beach in Jaimy's memory. The tragedy was best summed up by Gonzales Police Chief Bill Landry, who was interviewed at Jaimy's funeral. The man said, "You know, an innocent young lady who was enjoying the prime of her life, to learn what it means to be a teenager, to enjoy what it's like to enjoy high school and prom, and everything that comes with the simple things in life. And she won't get to experience that anymore." Simon Nellist was a nature lover by heart. He fell in love with Australia and the beautiful surrounding ocean when he was traveling there 6 or 7 years ago. He lived with his fiancée in Whiley Creek, South Sydney. Tragically, their wedding was postponed due to the coronavirus pandemic. Their wedding was only weeks away. They never had a chance to get married. Simon enjoyed swimming after work and often went for a swim in the warm waters between Little Bay and Malabar, East Sydney. Originally from Penzance in Cornwall, UK, Simon had served 2 tours in Afghanistan with the British Royal Air Force. He kept fit and had entered the Malabar Magic Ocean Swim, for which he had been training on that fatal day. The state of New South Wales extensively protects its beaches, including where Simon was attacked, from sharks. They deploy many different deterrents to protect the swimmers and surfers who frequent the beaches. Their shark mitigation program is thought to be the largest and most sophisticated in the world. Shark nets have been installed for nearly a century. An extensive shark tagging program is in operation. Sharks caught in the nets, particularly the more dangerous species such as great whites, tiger sharks, and bull sharks, are tagged with a tracker and relocated over a kilometer away. During busy summer weekends, when the beaches are at their most busy, drones and helicopters hover over the water, scanning for sharks. Shark sirens are sounded by lifeguards if a shark is spotted, and people are ordered to leave the water. If dangerous sharks have posed a risk to the public, baited drum lines are used to try and capture it. In over a century, fatal shark attacks in Australia are recorded as less than 1 per year. The safety measures the authorities take in order to keep people safe appear to be working. However, this is something that many people feel strongly about. Ironically, Simon was very outspoken about the cruelty of shark nets and drum lines. In one of his final Facebook posts, he stated, "Shark nets and drum lines protect no one and kill all kinds of marine life each year." Simon was 35 years old and was at one with the marine environment. Everything about Simon was connected to the ocean in one way or another. He was a diving instructor and a member of Sydney's Scuba Diving Social Club. He was a calm and patient instructor and was frequently telling his dive students to respect the ocean. He knew the risks associated with swimming in Sydney's waters, but his passion for adventure and the outdoors were what he lived for. Wednesday, 16 February 2022. Simon was swimming his usual training route near Little Bay. This bay is a short distance south of Malabar Beach, where he was hoping to compete in a charity fundraising swim the following weekend. Little Bay is a beautiful hidden gem south of Sydney Harbor. The sea is calm, with clear waters, and the golden sandy beach is sheltered from winds. It offers idyllic swimming conditions. Simon donned his wetsuit and entered the water. There were fishermen on the rocks, and others were swimming or paddling in the sea. At 4:30 p.m. and less than 150 meters from the shore, an enormous great white shark swam up from the depths. In a vertical attack, it exploded out of the water underneath Simon. It grabbed him in its jaws. In a desperate attempt, Simon screamed out for help and dramatically tried fighting the shark off. The shark was reported to have been more than 3 meters long. An eyewitness described the enormous splash like a car hitting the ocean. Adult great white sharks mostly hunt marine mammals such as seals and sea lions. They are incredibly strong animals, weighing up to a ton. Sharks have an excellent sense of smell and can detect electrical signals produced by marine animals. They are ambush predators, relying on the element of surprise to catch their prey. Typically, a great white shark will position itself below a seal or sea lion. It will then torpedo upwards, reaching speeds of up to 25 miles per hour. The sheer force of the shark's strike can knock its prey clean out of the water before its serrated teeth, up to 2 inches long, bite down. Horrifyingly, the shark bit down, tearing Simon's body in two. Shocked onlookers could do nothing but watch as Simon was killed within feet of the rocks of Buchan Point. His body was then dragged out to sea, and he was never seen again. One of the dozens of fishermen on the rocks at the time of the attack described the devastating scene. "I heard a scream, and the shark was just chomping on his body, and the body was in half just off the rocks here. It came back and swallowed parts of his body, and that was it. It disappeared." This desperately sad attack was vicious and frenzied. Locals who knew Simon and often greeted him as he took his daily swims said that it was unusual for swimmers in the area to wear wetsuits. The water was warm, and most bathers did not wear them. Experts have suggested that Simon, in his black wetsuit, was mistaken for a seal. From below the water's surface, a silhouetted swimmer above in a wetsuit could easily look similar to a seal or sea lion. It is thought that due to the nature of a great white shark's hunting method, most attacks are because of mistaken identity. The sharks can sense a mammal swimming above them, but cannot clearly see the type of animal it is. Their speed and precision make it difficult for them to stop midway through an attack. Often, sharks who attack people will swim away after the first bite as soon as they realize that this isn't their normal prey. Immediately after the terrifying attack on Simon, the Coast Guard and lifeguards patrolled the area in boats and on jet skis to try and find the shark. Smart drum lines were deployed in the location too. These drum lines are long lines with baited hooks. When the bait is taken by a shark, it triggers a magnet which, in turn, sends an alert via a solar-powered beacon to officials on shore. This gives advanced warning of a shark in the area. After fatal shark attacks, people often begin discussing culling sharks, but they are such an important marine species that a decline in their numbers could be devastating for the marine environment and subsequently humans. They are apex predators and therefore maintain the balance within the food chain. Areas where sharks are in decline have seen reductions in coral reefs, seagrass beds, and the loss of commercial fisheries. Each of these habitats is vital to a whole host of other species, not least the survival of human beings. Simon's family and friends have been left shocked and heartbroken by this attack. It was the first fatal attack in Australia in almost 60 years. It's devastating that someone who was so outspoken and passionate about the marine environment was killed far too young by a species he was trying to conserve. How to be shark safe. Number 1. Don't swim or surf at night or at dawn or dusk. This is when sharks are most active. They are also more likely to misidentify you for prey when visibility is poor. Number 2. Don't swim alone. Sharks are more likely to attack a lone swimmer than those in a group. Again, mistaken identity could be the cause of this. A group of swimmers is less likely to look like a seal or sea lion. Number 3. If you have an open cut or wound, do not go in the water. Sharks are well renowned for their incredible sense of smell. Some species of shark have a quarter of their brains dedicated to smell and can smell a drop of blood in the ocean from 3 miles away. Number 4. Remove jewelry before swimming in the ocean. Glinting rings or watches could be mistaken for fish scales and could attract a shark. Number 5. Stay away from fishing areas. Fishermen using bait and chum attract sharks. Also, areas where sewage or rivers enter the sea attract bait fish, which in turn attract sharks. Number 6. Excessive splashing either by people or by dogs can attract sharks and can confuse them into thinking that you or your pet are prey. Number 7. Steer clear of areas where sharks like to hang out. These include the borders between reefs or sandbars and the open ocean. White sharks, also known as great white sharks, are some of the most feared and awe-inspiring creatures in the world's oceans. These massive predators can grow up to 20 feet long and weigh over 5,000 pounds, with razor-sharp teeth and incredible speed that make them the apex predator of the seas. But what makes white sharks truly fascinating is their hunting behavior. With a keen sense of smell and electroreception, they can detect their prey from miles away. Once they've honed in on a potential meal, they use their impressive speed and power to launch a surprise attack, often breaching out of the water to grab their victim. Despite their fearsome reputation, many people are drawn to these incredible animals, seeking out opportunities to witness them in their natural habitat. One such person was Heather Boswell, just 19 years old, working in the galley of a research ship that was exploring the depths of the ocean. Heather Boswell was living the dream, spending a 6-month term with the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration aboard the ship Discoverer. Her job might not have been the most glamorous, but it gave her a chance to be a part of something bigger, to witness the wonders of the sea firsthand. Little did she know that her journey would take a terrifying turn when a great white shark would come crashing into her life, changing it forever. March 23, 1994 was a seemingly ordinary day on the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration research ship Discoverer, as it cruised through the Pacific Ocean around 300 miles east of Easter Island. But little did the crew know that a terrifying encounter with one of the ocean's most fearsome creatures was about to take place. As 9 members of the crew took a break from their duties to go for a refreshing open ocean swim, 3 of their colleagues monitored them from a rigid inflatable boat, scanning the waters for any signs of danger. Meanwhile, another crew member kept a watchful eye from aboard the ship. The sun beat down on the calm turquoise waters as the crew frolicked in the waves, blissfully unaware of the danger lurking just beneath the surface. Most of the swimmers had been in the water for over an hour, with Heather Boswell having spent about 45 minutes enjoying the cool embrace of the ocean. It was then that disaster struck, in the form of a massive great white shark that suddenly appeared on the scene. At first, the crew thought it was all a joke when someone yelled out, "Shark!" But as the enormity of the situation became apparent, panic set in, and fear spread through the swimmers like wildfire. Meanwhile, on the boat, the monitor heard a second warning cry out across the water. "I'm not kidding, there's a shark." The shark was now closing in on Heather Boswell, who was blissfully unaware of the danger that was lurking just 25 feet away from her. The crew on the boat watched in horror as the great white approached Boswell, ready to strike at any moment. As the crew of the Discoverer scrambled to safety, Boswell found herself in a nightmare beyond her wildest imaginings. She had heard the second call for the shark, and she knew what was about to happen, but nothing could have prepared her for the horror that was about to unfold. The boat crew had picked up several swimmers and had watched in horror as the great white submerged and then resurfaced, grabbing Boswell by the ankle. Desperately, a member of the crew reached out with a stick, hoping to save her from the jaws of the predator, but it was too late. The shark had already clamped down on her leg, pulling her underwater and shaking her with ferocious force. Boswell later recalled that the shark was chewing on her leg, tearing at her flesh with razor-sharp teeth. Despite the pain and terror, Boswell managed to fight her way to the surface, gasping for air as the shark continued to circle her. The boat crew reached out with a broom handle, hoping to pull her to safety, but the shark was not finished yet. In a split second, it struck again, grabbing her left leg and pulling her back underwater. Once again, the predator shook her with all its might, thrashing her back and forth like a rag doll. Finally, with incredible bravery and strength, Boswell managed to break free from the shark's grip and make it back to the surface. The boat crew grabbed her arms and tried to pull her to safety, but the shark refused to let go. In a game of tug-of-war between man and beast, the crew struggled to save Boswell's life. But it was too late. Boswell later said that she heard a sickening pop as the shark's jaws tightened around her leg, crushing bone and tearing flesh. It was a moment of heartbreak and horror that would stay with her for the rest of her life. The unimaginable horror didn't end there. Boswell desperately hoped that the popping sound she heard was just her leg dislocating, but when she looked down, her worst fear was realized. Her left leg was gone, bitten off by the monstrous great white shark. Meanwhile, a warning about a shark attack had been blared over the ship's PA system, and chaos ensued. Amidst the commotion, a crew member cleaning his pistol heard the announcement and immediately rushed to the scene. As he arrived, he saw the shark swimming towards a crew member climbing a ladder and immediately fired several rounds in an attempt to save them. Miraculously, the shark veered away and swam around the stern of the ship. But the man didn't stop there. He followed the predator, unaware that all the crew members were already out of the water. He fired 2 more shots at the shark's head, killing it. The entire situation was nothing short of a heart-stopping thriller, with Boswell's struggle for survival and the crew's heroics culminating in a dramatic showdown with the killer shark. Meanwhile, Boswell, who had been in the inflatable boat monitoring the swimmers, was hoisted onto the ship. It was then that the true extent of her injuries became apparent. Many people mistakenly believe that once a person is out of the water, they are safe. However, the reality is that survival often depends on the actions taken after the attack. The shark attack had left Boswell with severe injuries. The medical team worked tirelessly to stabilize Boswell, who had lost a substantial amount of blood and was unresponsive. As they began preparing her for medical evacuation, her fragile state caused her blood pressure to drop to an alarming level, and the medical team had to perform CPR to keep her alive. The whole situation was heart-wrenching, and Boswell's condition was precarious to say the least. But thanks to the quick thinking and dedication of the medical team and crew on the ship, Boswell slowly stabilized, and she was eventually transported to safety. The brave rescuers who risked their own lives to save Boswell were hailed as heroes and received well-deserved awards and recognition for their quick and decisive actions. Thanks to their heroic efforts, Boswell was able to receive the necessary medical treatment and was eventually flown to Seattle for further care. Heather Boswell's shark attack was a harrowing and traumatic experience that left her with life-changing injuries. However, the quick thinking and actions of the crew aboard the Discoverer and the medical team that treated her played a crucial role in saving her life. Their bravery and dedication to helping Boswell in her time of need cannot be overstated. Despite the physical and emotional scars that she undoubtedly carries, Boswell's survival and resilience are a testament to the human spirit and the power of hope in the face of adversity. Thank you for joining us as we remembered Boswell's survival and resilience. If you found this video informative and moving, we encourage you to like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. See you in the next one. It was January 5th, 2023, and Manuel Lopez was in his boat, ready to dive into endless waters and search for axe stripes, a highly demanded type of mollusks. Lopez was in his 50s and a very experienced diver and fisherman. The man had been a fisherman for as long as he could remember. He relied heavily on fishing to make ends meet, but now his source of income was being threatened. The waters were more dangerous than usual. Sharks migrate to the area to feed in December and January. Mexican divers had been warned about the presence of sharks in the area for days. Many of them had spotted the creatures themselves. The area was teeming with sharks, all of them hungry and on the lookout for food. Because of this, most fishermen had been on high alert and had decided to wait the migration out, but not everybody afforded the luxury of preserving their own life. While the Mexican government offers a stipend of 7,200 pesos, roughly $400 per year, to supplement fishermen's income, the sum is not enough to make ends meet. Financial pressures meant Manuel Lopez had to make an extremely difficult choice: keep diving or risk poverty. Lopez chose the former one, despite the huge dangers it implied. He knew that he had a chance of making some really good money. There was a shortage of seafood in the area, which in turn had created a great demand. The man needed to capitalize on this demand at a time when very few others would risk facing the sea. So on the morning of January 5th, 2023, Lopez went out on his boat. He wanted to scuba dive in order to collect axe tripe, a mollusk like a scallop. These mollusks are usually at a depth of 36 to 59 feet. Pulling them out of the ocean floor can be quite risky. The turbulence can spark the interest of nearby sharks, but Manuel Lopez was willing to take this risk too. After all, he wasn't completely alone. Sure, he was the only one who planned to enter the water, but there were two tenders on board the boat. At about 11:30 that morning, Lopez dived deep beneath the surface of the water, never to return again. The Gulf of California, also known as the Sea of Cortez, separates the Baja California Peninsula from the Mexican mainland. It has a surface of 62,000 square miles, and maximum depths exceed 9,800 feet. In other words, there's plenty of room for all kinds of marine creatures to lurk, and some of them are far more dangerous than others. The Gulf's rich ecosystem is home to many animals. It also hosts a large number of migratory species, such as the humpback whales, the manta ray, the leatherback sea turtle, and, of course, sharks. Manuel Lopez was interested in only one of the numerous species that have their natural habitat in the Gulf of California. The man knew he'd find the precious axe tripes deep down, buried in the ocean floor. The two tenders, Lopez's co-workers, watched as the man dived deeper and deeper. Soon enough, he reached the ocean floor and started pulling axe tripes. And then something horrible happened. A terrifying huge shark emerged out of nowhere. The two tenders watched in shock as the huge creature opened its jaws and with a swift motion decapitated Manuel Lopez and bit both of his shoulders. It all happened so quickly, it was almost impossible. One moment, Lopez was there, looking for axe tripes and more than alive. The next, he was gone, torn to pieces by a terrifying creature. Horrified, the two tenders rushed toward the shore and alerted authorities. Lopez's death was instantaneous, which brought them some kind of solace, but the trauma was still huge. Theories about how and why the attack happened started pouring in almost immediately. Everyone had an opinion, from fishermen to marine experts. Some scientists came forward and suggested the attack could have been prevented. According to them, it was all about the diving suit. Mexican authorities had previously advised divers to wear brightly colored wetsuits in order to stand out from seals. Because of the migration, pregnant female sharks often enter the Gulf's waters looking for fatty seals, which are often the preferred prey of hungry sharks. Some experts suggested the shark responsible for the attack might have mistaken Manuel Lopez for a seal because the man's suit was black. Other experts were unconvinced by these claims, stating that this kind of theory is hard to prove. Why? Because most wetsuits are black, or dark blue anyway, and there's no way to tell statistically whether they are the common denominator in shark attacks. However, many scientists agree the divers' fishing activity was most likely the cause of the attack. According to Chris Lowe, the director of the Shark Lab at California State University, Long Beach, the smell of the shellfish concentrated around the diver could have lured the shark to the area. This might have happened because sharks have extraordinarily developed olfactory senses, hence one of their nicknames, swimming noses. Sharks can easily detect smells in the water. To top it off, they can feel the vibrations caused by struggling animals. But there are other theories that might be true. The man's position on the ocean floor could have made him look like a foraging sea lion, which are also a favorite prey to sharks. There were other mysteries concerning the attack. Why did the shark bite the man's head and shoulders? Sharks usually go for the limbs. Once again, experts suggested Lopez's position on the seafloor might have provoked the unusual manner of the attack. Because the man was essentially walking along the bottom, the shark couldn't have approached him from underneath. Approaching prey from the side would have most likely exposed the shark to a counterattack, so biting the man's head was probably the shark's only viable option. Or maybe the creature went for the head for another, far simpler reason. Maybe the shark deliberately went for the head, intent on quickly incapacitating his victim. Despite all the theories, scientists argued that knowing the whole truth and the animal's reasoning was highly unlikely. Sadly, these attacks can happen, but there are safety measures that can potentially save a life. According to National Geographic, most shark attacks aren't fatal. Because they are curious by nature, sharks often bite humans just to figure out what they are. After these so-called sample bites, sharks usually release humans. These fierce animals don't have great eyesight, so they sometimes mistake humans for other mammals. That's when fatal attacks most likely occur. There are some safety measures you can take in order to avoid a shark attack. Avoid swimming at dusk or dawn, since this is feeding time for sharks, and also their eyesight is even worse than usual. Avoid estuaries, since the murky waters can provide a perfect hiding point for sharks. Avoid areas with fishing, because the smells and the vibrations can and will attract sharks. Don't wear shiny objects while swimming, because sharks can mistake shiny jewelry for fish. Don't panic if you encounter a shark, and maintain eye contact. It was February 19, 2023, a Sunday, and Chris Davis was having a pleasant day in New Caledonia. Davis was 59 years old, but far from being anything but a strong, resilient man. In fact, Chris Davis was an experienced triathlete. Over the years, the man had represented his native Australia in age group world championship events several times. Triathletes are all about endurance, speed, and strength. They take part in competitions that require them to swim, cycle, and run. In a few words, they're tough. But Davis wasn't in New Caledonia to train for a competition. In fact, he was there for a far more simple, more pleasant reason: a vacation. New Caledonia isn't as popular as other dreamy destinations, say the Bahamas or Hawaii, but this doesn't mean the place is without its wonders. In fact, the opposite is true. New Caledonia is a collective of overseas France. Its inhabitants are French citizens who vote for the President of France. Despite this, the archipelago enjoys a quite significant autonomy. The dozens of islands that make up New Caledonia are located some 900 miles east off the coast of Australia, in the South Pacific. The place has increasingly become more and more popular with Aussie tourists. After all, it's just a 3-hour flight from Sydney to Noumea, New Caledonia's capital city. After the flight, tourists are free to experience a one-of-a-kind place, one that combines the spirit of the French Riviera with the exotic beauties of the South Pacific. Like many other Aussies in the past few years, 59-year-old Chris Davis chose New Caledonia as his travel destination. He probably made an educated decision, because the place is perfect for the more active travelers, such as past triathletes. Water sports are a big thing in New Caledonia, and so are diving, snorkeling, hiking, and horse riding. On February 19, 2023, Chris Davis was in Noumea, New Caledonia's capital, enjoying a day at the Chateau Royal Beach. Located just in front of the Chateau Royal Beach Hotel, this particular beach was bound to be popular. The day was beautiful, and the beach was more than crowded. People frolicked on the sand as well as in the sapphire blue water. None of them seemed to have a care in the world, and why would they? With the sun shining and the exotic views of New Caledonia, life seemed to be nothing short of perfect. In reality, there were plenty of reasons to be concerned, and all of them had to do with sharks. Sure, Australia is no stranger to sharks and other deadly creatures, and neither is the USA. In fact, New Caledonia ranks 13th in the world for the number of shark attacks. While this is still a precarious position, New Caledonia's waters are still generally considered pretty safe. But pretty safe is not the same as 100% safe. There had been many signs that all was not well in the South Pacific paradise. The Chateau Royal Beach had been the site of an almost deadly shark attack less than a month before, on January 29th. On that day, a 49-year-old woman named Bridget Dew entered the water and was viciously attacked by a shark. The woman lost a hand, 4 fingers, and part of her leg in the attack, but she survived. Only days after, a foil surfer was also attacked by sharks, but the man managed to escape unscathed. Still on February 19, 2023, Chris Davis entered the water for a swim. Maybe he didn't know about the previous attacks, or maybe he thought he would be safe. After all, he wasn't the only one brave enough to venture in the water that day. There were many others. Children swam alongside their parents. The day was bright and full of joy, but that was about to change. Davis entered the waves and started swimming, some 450 feet away from the shore. He was no amateur. He had strength, endurance, and technique, all of them things that are generally required of triathletes. But these qualities weren't enough to save the man. Something happened. As the man was pulled beneath the waves, others looked in horror. Those still in the water scrambled toward the shore, towards safety. Those already on the beach watched in horror, petrified by the scene unfolding in front of their eyes. They could see the shark, and they could see the man thrashing as if he was struggling to get away from something. Children screamed, burying their heads in their parents' embrace. Soon enough, the water turned crimson, and then in a blink of an eye, it was all over. The man was left lying face down in the bloodied water, his limp body carried by the waves. Jet skiers rushed to help the man. When they reached him, it was clear Davis was no longer conscious. Still, they struggled to get Davis on a jet ski without causing him any further damage. His injuries were gruesome, too horrible to look at, but they needed to save him. Once Davis was safely taken to the sand, paramedics started their relentless effort to keep him alive. Unfortunately, it was too late. Over 40 minutes of CPR proved to be fruitless. Chris Davis was dead, horribly attacked by a shark. His injuries were simply too serious. According to paramedics, he was bitten 3 times on his right leg. He also suffered extensive injuries on both of his arms. Beaches in the area were immediately closed after the attack. Authorities knew they had to capture the shark and make sure it wouldn't attack anybody else. Sonia Lagarde, Noumea's mayor, ordered sharks in the nearby waters to be culled. No one in the area was allowed to enter the water anymore. It was too dangerous. Meanwhile, while authorities were on the hunt for the animal, an autopsy revealed Chris Davis never stood a chance. According to the grim autopsy reports, any one of Davis's injuries was enough to kill him. Davis suffered an incredibly large bite to his thigh, extending 14.5 inches from the hip to the knee, causing a deep lesion with the section of the femoral artery. This injury caused massive blood loss, which was enough to kill the man on its own. To top it off, Davis's other injuries were also deemed fatal. They were located on the man's upper limbs, the forearm, and the hands. 3 days after the attack, New Caledonia authorities shared a picture of a huge 13-foot shark captured in the area where Davis was swimming at the time of the attack. The huge shark was immediately believed responsible for the attack. Its size and location fit the profile. The animal was killed shortly after being captured. Chris Davis's body was returned to Australia to his family. The man was survived by his wife and by his 3 adult sons. The family released a statement regarding Davis's tragic fate. The statement said, "We are deeply mourning the loss of our beloved husband and father, Chris Davis." Chris was a senior software programming consultant in the superannuation and funds management industry and a keen triathlete, having represented Australia several times in age group world championship events. The family also took their time to thank New Caledonia authorities for their efforts in trying to save Davis's life. They expressed their sincere gratitude. On June 8, 2023, Yuri Popov and his 23-year-old son Vladimir headed to the waterfront next to the Dream Beach Hotel at the Egyptian resort of Hurghada. The pair, originally from Russia, had moved to Egypt several months before. It's reported that Vladimir was born in the subarctic city of Arkhangelsk in Russia before moving to Moscow. During the war with Ukraine, he moved to Egypt, apparently to avoid conscription into the army. His family had bought a property in the city of Hurghada, where Vladimir was working remotely as an IT specialist. On this particular day, he and his family were visiting the beach to relax and enjoy the cool waters of the Red Sea. The beach was busy. The water was full of locals and tourists swimming and splashing about in the shallows. Vladimir joined them. While his father remained on the sand, he took a dip. People were sliding down slides, landing in the water with a splash as children shrieked with excitement. A ladder lowered others into the water. The Red Sea Resort was popular, and the beach and the sea were its main attractions. People felt safe there. It was a life-guarded stretch of water, and the sea was calm. Not long after Vladimir entered the water, he heard shouts of concern. He looked around. Turning his head, he could see other swimmers heading for the beach. Holidaymakers screamed at the young man. Then he saw it, the telltale dorsal fin of a shark breaking through the surface of the ocean. It was large, dark gray, slicing through the water like a knife through butter. It circled Vladimir, its circles getting smaller and smaller. He made a dash for it, but he had left it too late. While others managed to get to safety, Vladimir had been targeted by the shark. It had locked its eyes onto the youngster from deep below the surface. The Russian's fate was now sealed. He hadn't spotted it in time. He was too far from the shore. The shark made a beeline for the swimmer and grabbed him. He was seen thrashing around in the water. He spun around and around as the shark tightened its grip and began to drag him downwards underwater. Amongst the commotion, Vladimir's legs were seen kicking above the water as he fought back. He was flipped over by the shark, disoriented and bloodied. Vladimir was then released and bobbed back up to the surface. The thrashing stopped. For a few heart-stopping moments, there was stillness. Vladimir, who was clearly injured as seen from the red-stained water surrounding him, could be seen beginning to swim back toward the shore. Was he going to make it? Maybe the shark had taken one bite and realized this was not its usual prey. Nervously, Vladimir summoned all his strength and headed toward dry land, but he only made it a few strokes. The ominous and terrifying shadow of the shark could be seen turning around and heading back for him. It hadn't finished its attack. It hadn't made a mistake. It knew this prey was injured. It was getting weaker, and it now came in for the kill. Vladimir cried out to his father on the beach. "Papa, Papa," a desperate plea for help as the shark swam toward him again. It latched onto him, its huge jaws closing around his torso, pulling him underwater once more. The sea bubbled and boiled. The shark had him firmly in its jaws and thrashed, its body rising up and out of the water. Again and again it rolled, over and over, a commotion of tail and fins as it flapped wildly. By now, Vladimir was no longer visible. The shark pulled him under, never to be seen alive again. A lifeguard from a nearby hotel rushed to the man's aid. As soon as the attack began, he jumped into a speedboat and the engine burst into life, motoring toward the action. But it was too late. There was nothing anybody could do. They arrived on the scene just seconds too late. The man's body had disappeared from sight. Although the attack will play out in people's minds over and over, each wondering if they could have done something, it only lasted a matter of seconds, about 20 seconds in total. It had been a ferocious and brutal attack. For Yuri to witness his son's death must have been devastating. Unable to help, unable to reach him, watching him take his last breath. Knowing that Vladimir was fighting for his life, knowing that he was desperately trying to get back to shore, but he was all alone out there, fighting a losing battle. It must have been absolutely heartbreaking, a traumatic thing to witness. Vladimir's girlfriend, Anastasia, was also said to be in the water at the time of the attack. Some said that Vladimir warned her to swim away, protecting her from the imminent attack. Another Russian lady, devastated and distraught from witnessing the attack, was comforted by others on the sand. It's not known whether she was related to the family or not. Eyewitnesses, clearly traumatized from the tragic death, reported seeing the shark taking chunks out of Vladimir's body for up to 2 hours after the attack, dragging his body underwater again and again. Authorities launched a search for the tiger shark. It had remained in the area and was easy to spot from the speedboats. They circled the large animal, trailing behind them fishing nets. When it was caught in the net, it was dragged ashore and up onto the beach. As it lay there, its fins and tail wrapped in rope, it was clubbed to death as it squirmed and gasped. Men with metal bars and wooden sticks beat the animal again and again on the head and snout. Another brutal and unforgiving death. A crowd gathered around the shark's motionless body, its large mouth gaping wide open. It had been a tragic end for both man and beast. Local officials said they were going to conduct a post-mortem and an investigation on the shark to try to understand why this incident happened. So often with shark attacks, a shark will take one bite before realizing it had made a mistake and swims away. It is less common for them to come back again and again. Authorities banned anyone from entering the water on the beach and several others that were nearby. Almost 50 miles of coastline were closed to the public for the following 3 days. Swimming, snorkeling, and kayaking were prohibited until it was deemed safe again. Shark attacks in the Red Sea coastal resorts are considered rare. However, in 2022, there were 2 fatal attacks near Hurghada City, where Vladimir was killed. The resorts are popular, especially with European tourists. They offer excellent swimming and diving opportunities. But when attacks like this happen, people doubt the safety of the waters. It will take time for the tourism industry to recover, but in time, people will forget until it happens again.